Isn't it beautiful? And you can see this fire steel here was brand new when I started. Back the knife. Went into my hand right there, about a ½ inch deep when they come out. So I think the sheath is nice. Isn't it beautiful? I think it is. I just received this back from Spyderco. Actually, this is the Spyderco Bushcraft knife. This is the second year production. I originally had the first one. I think I've done a video on it, or maybe not a video on that. I think I did a sharpening video. But man, I love that knife. It had a beautiful burled maple handle and just gorgeous. My favorite knife, the most comfortable knife I've ever held, a knife that I was able to hold in hand and work and use for hours on end and not suffer any soreness, any hot spots, any fatigue. Perfectly balanced, perfectly ergonomic, great steel, great weight, great balance, just a pleasure to own. Unfortunately, the burled maple handle cracked on me. I knew this was a big problem with Spyderco on that first gen knife, and a lot of them came back, and Spyderco was actually selling them as seconds. And if you could always tell because they cut a groove on those at a seconds, and it was a great deal. I think they were selling them for half price. Mine was an original; it was a first, so I got a replacement. I was hoping mine wouldn't crack because I really liked that handle. There were really no two alike, and it was just gorgeous, just a gorgeous handle and a nice feel to it. Unfortunately, I pulled it out of the sheath after I had it stored while we were moving, and lo and behold, right from the rivet point across, it was all cracked and starting to separate. So I contacted Spyderco, talked to them on the phone. They were very, very kind, explained to my problem, and they said, yeah, no problem, go ahead and send it on in, and we'll just offer you a credit towards another knife. And I said, well, I really would like to have the same knife. And she said, well, we don't have that anymore, but we do have this year's version that we've replaced it with a G10 handle. Same exact knife, same exact steel, just with a G10 handle. So I said, yeah, that'll be fine. I like G10. That seems like that would be more than adequate. So about a week or so, I got the knife, and I've had it for a couple weeks now, and I've used it a lot. Living out where I do, we're often outdoors, and Mrs. Wranglerstar and I we're working on doing trail building, and I spend a lot of time with Jack and try to teach him, bushcrafting skills and firelighting skills and stuff. And this knife is a constant companion for me. Also, I've been carrying it on my belt as I'm working, using it to cut just daily task cardboard and such. And it's a fixed blade like this is entirely appropriate for where I live and the type of lifestyle that I have. So my initial impression when I first unboxed it and I pulled it out was I was surprised how heavy it was. The G10 is significantly, well, I don't know what significantly, but I noticed it right away. I grabbed it and I thought, man, this knife is really heavy. It really surprised me. And it kind of bummed me out a little bit about the weight, and it kind of bummed me out the it just didn't have that rich, earthy feel that the burled maple had. And I was looking at it, and the fit and finish on it is just really, really nice, but you can't get around the fact that it's just kind of, G10, this G10 just feels I thought it felt a little bit plasticky, but oh well, no big deal. But after using it really heavy for a couple weeks, I really like it. I think it's a gorgeous knife, beautiful. It's smooth, as I said, perfectly ergonomic, and really a gorgeous knife. This knife is kind of interesting. It was kind of was spawned by a lot of the the Bushcraft forums. I think it says as much here on the blade. Bushcraft UK. It's kind of a collaboration between Spyderco's design department and a lot of the guys that were really hardcore bushcrafters, and this is kind of what they came up with. And what a beautiful knife it is. Just fantastic. One thing that I have noticed with it, it's got a high carbon content. It's a OS1 steel, which is really easy to sharpen. It's really durable. It's kind of a tool steel, so you can tweak and pry on it, which is something you really do often with a bushcraft knife, and you just don't have that brittleness. What I did run in with my other one is if I ever neglected it and put it in the sheath after doing some work, some of the tannins from the wood or the residue or pitch that would remain on the blade, if I didn't clean it properly, it would start to surface rust, actually relatively quickly. So you got to be careful with that. So what I do is after I'm using it, I just wipe it down, I just spray it with a little bit of oil, WD-40, whatever, and before I put it in the sheath, and it seems to alleviate that problem. I'm really surprised with how sharp this thing was. It's rarely you get a knife that comes out of the box that I would consider to be, I think the term is scary sharp. Well, this knife was scary sharp. And it seems to hold an edge really, really well, especially one thing it's really a true test is cutting cardboard. And I cut a lot of cardboard, and it's an excellent edge holder. And I thought this blade being as fat as it is, that it wouldn't be a really good cutter. But I'll tell you what, that this cuts the pants off my latest knife that I've purchased, which was scary sharp too, which is the Spyderco Sage. And it surprised me because I thought this really thin blade would be a better cutter. It doesn't cut as well as this does, and I don't really know why that is. I've since used it. I've sharpened it twice using Japanese water stones, because the way the scandi grind is, you can't use like a sharp maker or conventional sharpening tools on it. You need to sharpen it in a very specific way. And the reason why they cut that grind like that is because it has so much strength. The edge can be really brittle on a hollow ground knife like this, and if you find yourself locking into a piece of wood, and any twisting back and forth will cause small little breaks, little chips. I've seen that, done it myself. Not so much on this one, because the bevel is so sharp, it's so fat, and it just lends so much strength to the edge. This knife is full tang, as you can see, super strong. And if you see one of these things with the handles off them, the tang is all skeletonized to save on weight. But man, I sure like this knife. It's just a joy, a pleasure to own. It's beautiful. This beautiful knife. The first one that I had a this one here has the same sheath. You can see right here. And I didn't care for the first sheath. It was brown, and it was really an odd color of brown. It looked like it was vinyl or fake leather, even though it's not. It's a good high quality sheath, well stitched. The edges are all blocked. Nice sheath. It's ambidextrous, which is nice, so lefties or righties can use it. One complaint I do have against this one, well, the other one had the same thing too, but inside, I don't know if you can see this here. Let me see if I can get the camera right. Yeah, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not. Inside there, there's a little plastic insert, and I think that the idea for that was to help guide the knife in. But what it seems to do is if the knife is not perfectly centered, it seems to want to go on the other side of that insert. And I have had a little trouble with it, even after using it for a long time. I find the best thing when it's on the belt is just to kind of hold it here and drop it, and it seems to find its center, and then you can seat it in. And the sheath is one thing that's also nice about the sheath is you can, when you're using the knife a lot, when I'm having it in and out of the sheath a lot, I'll just seat it a little bit, and it lends itself to have a lot more of the handle exposed, and it's a lot easier to grasp, easier to get out, but not a real secure way to keep it. But if I'm going for, heading out, and I want to be sure that I'm not using a knife a lot, I want to be sure it's contained, I can push it all the way in, and it really locks in there good, and I never have any concerns that it's going to come out. So I think the sheath is nice. And back to the color, the original brown one looked phony, looked cheap, and I never warmed up to it. I never liked it. I was very surprised and glad to see with the new sheath that they've done it in a black color, which looks much nicer and contrasts the hand. Well, it's not a contrast at all. It just looks good with the handle. You got your typical belt loop there, nice and wide. I've run it on a 2-inch belt. You could run it probably on a 3, close to a 3-inch belt. I think it would probably fit, but I like the sheath. I was considering having, having a saddle maker make another one, perhaps with a loop for the fire steel, and I don't think so. It's nice to have. It's nice to have a knife that has a kind of an integrated fire steel. I guess you could probably put that in there, but yeah, I mean that would probably work just fine. But Jack and I have been out working with showing him how to start fires and with the knife, and I've used this a lot. You can see this fire steel here was brand new when I started, and I've got quite a bit of wear on it. But using this on the back of the knife, even with all of that use, the edge is still super sharp. I don't feel anything beveling or, yeah, it's just it's great. A beautiful knife. Is there anything else to add? Price. These things are expensive. They list for what that's worth. I don't know. They're right around $300 or so. You can buy them for just under $200. That's what you're going to pay for them. As I said, OS1 steel, high carbon. It's got the Spyderco hole in it. Non-functional, but well, it looks all right. This is the first one. It's funny what Spyderco has done here with their Taiwan knives, and it's a subtle thing, but it just seems to make a big difference. It's they've got the Taiwan stamp on there, but it's Taiwan Tai Ching. It just seems to give it a little bit more credibility that you actually, it's not just from Taiwan, it's from Tai Ching, Taiwan. So I like it. I appreciate that. But my other one, the Taiwan was up here a little bit higher, and it bothered me. I didn't like it. People would look at the knife that didn't know anything about knives and say, "Oh, hey, can I see your knife? That's really gorgeous." When they'd see that burled maple handle, and then they'd pull it out of the sheath and see Taiwan on it, and they were all bummed out, like, "Oh, this isn't a good knife at all." They didn't know. But I think the Sage is the same way. Yeah, Taichung, Taiwan. Gives it maybe a little bit more credibility. I don't care about that. The thing speaks for itself. Quality steel, quality products, beautifully made, beautifully designed, and man, what a pleasure. If I could only have one knife, living where I do, and it would be hard to take a fixed blade over a folder. So if I had to have one knife, obviously my Benchmade's not here, but if I had to have one knife, I would, of course, I would choose a fixed blade. No question about it. This is a knife that I can do shelter craft with. I could split wood with if I had to. I could certainly use it for butchering animals. It's not the ideal shape for skinning, but certainly more than adequate. Nice brass lanyard hole there. Solid brass insert. Just I love it. If you guys are on the fence with about one of these, and you need a good fixed blade, man, I would really recommend this. Nice big strong tip. Really wide. I don't know how wide that is. I'd say it looks like probably 1/8 or better. Heavy, solid, burly knife. This knife has done. I had the worst knife injury I've ever had in my life with this particular, not this particular knife, but my previous one. The same thing. We were in California last summer on a road trip to a camp meeting, and I was carving out a spoon, and I was getting down to the hard part. And I knew better than this, but I just couldn't get the angle on it. And I was working, and I just let that thing slip, and it went into my hand right there, about a 1/2 inch deep. Man, it laid me open. It was such a bad cut. So lesson learned on that. That's it. Is anything else to say? Steel, scandi grind. If you guys, I do have a video on there that it shows how to sharpen these things, and it's actually quite simple. Nice thing about a scandi grind is that there's just no guesswork on the bevel. You can see, what you do. Pretend that the sheath here is a stone. You just simply tip that up like that, and then just lay that across and follow that angle, working it both ways. And very simple to sharpen. Anyone can do it. How about a sharp test here? I just sharpened this up, stropped it last night, and it is sharp. Super sharp. You can see there, obviously. So you know, there's a couple things a guy needs to have. You know, you need to have a good fixed blade knife. You need to have one or two good folders. You need to have you know it's. I'm trying to help you justify buying one of these, and it is a pleasure. I've been accused of being a Spyderco fanboy and lately, and man, if they continue to produce products like this, then I'll certainly be a Spyderco fanboy, because they are an outstanding company and making some great stuff. So thought I'd share that with you, and I sure have enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Enjoy owning it. One of my favorite things. So that's it. 2nd gen Spyderco Bushcraft knife. Highly recommended by the Wranglerstar channel, and if you order one, you will not be disappointed. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.